Namaste, everyone. So today we'll continue with our series dedicated to the Nakshatras, or 27 lunar mansions in Vedic Astrology. And today we'll talk about Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, a very special nakshatra, like all of them, ruled by Venus and god known as Aryama, the god of divine partnerships, the god of divine alliances, the god actually who helps us to become more by getting in contact with others. It's so actually significant that Purva Phalguni is nakshatra number 11. Now, why it's special and significant? Because number 11 itself is kind of special, it's 1 plus 1. If you bring 1 and 1 together, some form of different unity happens. You become more. This is why Purva Phalguni Nakshatra was known as Nakshatra of partnerships, marriages, alliances. It's the nakshatra which is all oriented on bringing the opposites together. And out of bringing them together, out of the fusion of those two, something new comes into being. The shakti, or the power of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, is prajanana shakti, power to procreate, to create something new, to bring something new into being, some form of new quality which comes out of the union of opposites. And because of that, Purva Phalguni is known as one of the most creative nakshatras. And of course, not surprisingly, this is the nakshatra that dwells at the very heart of sidereal Leo, which is also a very creative sign, which is the sign that is all oriented, on bringing something new, trying new experiences. Purva Phalguni Nakshatra really awakens this curiosity within us, and out of this curiosity, often some great creative ideas come through. So creativity is one of the most beautiful sides of this nakshatra. And of course, when Moon himself dwells in Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, it's also one of the best days to actually create something new, to challenge ourselves to look at some things from another perspective. Now, because it is the nakshatra ruled by Venus, and it has this shakti, prajanana shakti, power to procreate, this nakshatra is also filled not just with divine curiosity, but also with many desires, which of course sometimes can make this nakshatra overly materialistic, overly, indulgent. This is actually one of the most known shadow sides of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. The natives with those placements tend to overindulge into things, into things that are pleasant, into things that are tasty, into things that are good looking in general. So often the desire itself can become for these natives the biggest enemy. One thing that is really special about Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, that natives with prominent planets placed there, they really love having the best of things. They just value the quality of things. They like when things are always the best. When they're buying a computer, it must be a MacBook. When they're buying a phone, it must be an iPhone. They just like when things are high quality. And it's actually funny because even the desire of this god, the desire of this nakshatra, as per the Vedas, is the desire to have the best share among all the gods. Similarly, natives with prominent planets placed in Purva Phalguni Nakshatra very often want to have best of things, which is okay, but sometimes definitely they may end up also spending too much on trying to buy overly expensive products as well. So especially when Moon dwells in Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, you might like to be a little careful while shopping. Now, one thing which is a very nice side effect of this quality, you could say, is that Purva Phalguni natives, they can truly appreciate beauty. Things which are beautiful, things which are creative, like arts, beautiful music, beautiful painting. They actually just have this appreciation for things which are just made beautiful, that are just made in an artistic way. And that's also, a very nice quality of theirs, because due to that, very often Purva Phalguni natives also, more than anybody else, are capable to similarly see beauty also in another person, see beauty in certain situations in life. So they have this, you could say, natural appreciation for things which are, in some way beautiful, either externally or internally. Now, the symbol of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra is often said to be either a hammock or a bed, basically a resting place. And this is kind of, nice quality of Purva Phalguni natives, but people who really have prominent placements in Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, like in their entire body language, you can see that they are somehow more relaxed, than other people. And they really appreciate their own comfort as well. Of course, sometimes it can lead them also to being lazy as well, and that's also the shadow side of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. But on the other hand, if you think of that, some of the most wonderful and most, you could say, creative inventions of this world were made precisely because people were either bored or lazy. So Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, in a way, is showing us that sometimes, if you want this, creative potential to awaken within you, you need to allow yourself also to slow down. Maybe to be a little lazy from time to time, or even to get bored. But of course, if you have prominent placements in that nakshatra, then in any case, do not overdo that. Now, of course, because of all of these qualities, Purva Phalguni natives are usually quite fun people to be around. That's like almost like their trademark. And because of that, very often people who have like strong placements there, they pursue some form of creative career, and they can be really good in entertainment as well. Because in the field of entertainment, you don't need only creativity, you also need this special, talent to make connection with others, which actually the god of this nakshatra, Aryama, is giving to Purva Phalguni natives. Also, because Purva Phalguni natives can be so fun in nature and sometimes maybe a little lazy, you can see that sometimes they can be also a little bit carefree, or even develop a little bit of, this happy-go-lucky type of attitude. Like they can be really in some way ungrounded as well, These are very often, especially on spiritual path, these type of people who, instead of doing the hard work and their own effort, they will just say, I am sure that God will take care of that for me eventually. So yes, they can become a little bit passive sometimes as well, especially about the things about which they are not passionate about. Because Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, once the passion is, let's say, stirred within, they can really, go fully into something. But once the passion is gone, they might not as easily commit to something. According to the Puranas, Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, even though ruled by Shukra, by Venus, is also the birthplace of Jupiter, Brihaspati, the god of expansion and faith and optimism. And because of that, Purva Phalguni natives are actually naturally optimistic. They have naturally, this very positive attitude towards life. Maybe sometimes even bordering a little bit with naivety. In this way and in many other ways, you can see how the qualities of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, some of them are reflected in Punarvasu as well, And of course, because of this optimism, similarly, like with Punarvasu Nakshatra, Purva Phalguni natives sometimes can be also hyper optimistic, especially in the beginning of creating something. When they're still, very, very passionate, they can exaggerate things and they can, they can imagine the things to be far more grand than they actually end up being. So sometimes this hyper optimism can be also a bit of inner enemy, because when you have this quality, then you'll have this, inner spark of passion in the beginning of the project. But then when the hard work starts and when this passion kind of cools down, you also lose your effort and commitment to the project. And due to that, things also do not end up being so grand and huge as you maybe initially imagined them to be. So this hyper optimism and over enthusiasm, I would say, is one quality that definitely Purva Phalguni natives need to look into and try to balance it out a little bit, because life will simply become easier. Purva Phalguni is, of course, one of the most passionate nakshatras. It's also Ugra nakshatra. It has this fierce energy of fire into it as well, dwelling also in the heart of sidereal Leo, even though it's ruled by Venus. So because it's such a passionate nakshatra, again, it can be a great advantage for these people, because out of this passion, many great works, many great projects can be born. And truly, when those people are really passionate about something, they can be also very proactive about it. As opposed to when they do something that they have no passion, then they can become very passive as well. And of course, it all comes down to knowing how to use this passion. So to not let passion bind us, neither to let passion to blind us, but to really use it for some form of creative purpose as well. Because too much passion, when it's uncontrolled, especially in the beginning of a relationship, can lead up, to having lots of relationships that actually end up not as great as we thought they are going to be. So the passion can be either the greatest friend of Purva Phalguni natives or the greatest enemy, depending on how they use this energy. Now, because Purva Phalguni is ruled by Aryama, the god of divine partnerships, sacred partnerships, alliances, because of that, actually, connection with other people is very important for Purva Phalguni natives. And very often, when they do not have this connection, or if they didn't found this right person yet in life, they might feel somehow empty, Relations are really of great importance for Purva Phalguni natives. And through relations, they also learn a lot. Through relations, they learn how to balance some of their own qualities as well. So, of course, Purva Phalguni Nakshatra is very much associated with this idea of relations and partnerships and connection, which is why also those natives will always find themselves kind of most fulfilled when they also do some form of work which is also connected with others. Some form of work where they can just connect with people, simply speaking. Because this true, genuine, and fun, because fun is always important for Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, but especially true and genuine connection is very important for those natives. Now, because relations are so important for Purva Phalguni natives, and because this nakshatra is ruled by Venus, Shukra, which is the most political, you could say, of all planets in a sense. Of course, due to that, Purva Phalguni natives usually can be quite diplomatic in the way they talk to others. Of course, it depends quite a lot on which exact planet is being seated there, but in its very nature, Purva Phalguni Nakshatra is rather diplomatic in the way it talks to others, because it values the connection, and very often is even afraid to break the connection, which is why those people will be more inclined to say something uncomfortable in a very diplomatic way, rather than saying it directly and straightforward. This is also why people with strong placement in Purva Phalguni can be great counselors and mediators between other people. They have this fascinating talent to unite people, actually, to bring these two opposites together and really, try to find some form of compromise between them. Help others to find compromise. And this is actually, quite a unique quality as well. The only shadow side of trying to be too diplomatic and maybe sometimes being too afraid to lose certain connections is that we might have tendency to go too much on a compromise. And this is also the shadow side of Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. It tends to go sometimes too much on a compromise. It tends to even compromise on its own values just for the sake of, making some agreement, basically speaking, or maintaining status quo, That's the shadow side of this nakshatra. On another hand, a beautiful quality and a beautiful potential that is hidden in that is that, of course, these people also are pretty capable to not just go on compromise themselves, but also show others the path towards compromise as well. Not without a reason, Aryama, this particular Vedic god, he was praised in the Rig Veda as the god who leads us towards the path without hatred, towards the path of our heart, helps us to be more heart-based. Of course, when we are more heart-based, we can be also more ruled by our passions and emotions, and that's the shadow side of it. But the bright side of it is that we will value also the connection with others more. And this is something really beautiful that we all can learn from Purva Phalguni natives as well. So that's all from me about Purva Phalguni Nakshatra today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're curious to know more about this nakshatra and especially about this unique symbolism of number 11 and other, little details about this lunar mansion, you can either get a webinar, a full, class on which we are talking and discussing in great depth and detail about Purva Phalguni along with study cases, or you can also get my whole nakshatra course and learn there more about the significance of each nakshatra. So you'll find all the links below. Thank you and namaste.